Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. The call came in at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late July. A housekeeper at the Azure Bay Resort in Monterey, California, stood trembling outside room 412, her phone pressed against her ear as she spoke to the police dispatcher. She had opened the door expecting to find rumpled sheets and empty wine bottles. Instead, she found a scene that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The room looked like a hurricane had torn through it. Furniture was overturned, a lamp lay shattered on the floor, and the white curtains billowed through a wide-open balcony door. But what made her blood run cold was the blood. Not pools of it, but droplets and smears leading from the bed to the balcony, as if someone had been dragged. The bed itself was still made, though the comforter hung halfway off, clutched in what must have been a desperate grip. Detective Sarah Chen arrived 20 minutes later, her coffee still steaming in her hand. She had been with the Monterey Police Department for 12 years, working everything from petty theft to homicide, but something about this scene felt different. The room was registered to Emma and Michael Hartley, a couple from Boston celebrating their 5th wedding anniversary. According to the resort's records, they had checked in 3 days earlier and had barely left their room. The balcony overlooked the rocky coastline, a 70-foot drop to jagged rocks and churning Pacific waters below. Sarah stood at the railing, looking down at the waves crashing against the shore. Her partner, Detective Marcus Rodriguez, was already interviewing staff members in the lobby. So far, no one had heard anything unusual. No screams, no sounds of a struggle, nothing. Inside the room, the forensics team worked methodically. They found Emma's purse on the dresser, her wallet and phone still inside. Michael's belongings were there too, including his laptop, which sat open on the desk with the screensaver still running. Their suitcases were unpacked, clothes hanging neatly in the closet. Everything suggested they had planned to stay for the full week they had booked. But they were both gone. Sarah pulled on latex gloves and began examining the personal items more carefully. Emma's phone was unlocked, the battery at 15%. The last message sent was at 11:32 p.m. the previous night, a text to someone named Rachel. It read, "He knows. I don't know what to do. I'm scared." Below it, 3 dots appeared and disappeared multiple times, as if Rachel had tried to respond but couldn't find the words. Marcus returned with new information. A night security guard remembered seeing Michael Hartley leaving the resort alone around midnight, carrying what looked like a small duffel bag. He seemed agitated, kept looking over his shoulder. The guard had asked if everything was okay, and Michael had snapped at him to mind his own business before hurrying to the parking lot. But here was the thing that made Sarah's stomach tighten. Michael's rental car was still in the parking lot, keys and all. The blood analysis came back within hours. It was human blood, type O negative. The resort confirmed that Emma Hartley had listed O negative as her blood type on the medical information form required for their spa packages. The amount found in the room was not enough to be fatal, but it was enough to indicate a violent struggle. As the afternoon sun began to set, painting the California coast in shades of orange and red, Sarah received a call from the Boston Police Department. They had been contacted by Emma's sister, Rachel, the woman from the text messages. Rachel was nearly hysterical, barely able to speak through her sobs. She told them something that turned the entire investigation on its head. Emma had been planning to leave Michael. She had discovered something about him, something terrible that she wouldn't discuss over the phone. Rachel said Emma had sounded terrified during their last conversation 2 days ago, right before she stopped answering calls entirely. Emma had whispered that she had found evidence, proof of what Michael had been doing, and that she was going to confront him on this trip. Sarah asked what Michael had been doing. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. She said she found photos on his computer. Women. Lots of women. And news articles. About missing persons. The forensics team was already examining Michael's laptop when Sarah rushed back into the room. They had bypassed the password and were scrolling through files. What they found made even the most seasoned investigators feel a chill run down their spines. There were hundreds of photos. Women at beaches, women at restaurants, women walking alone at night. All of them were candid shots, taken without the subjects knowing. Some photos had dates going back years. And in a hidden folder buried deep in the system, they found detailed notes. Names, locations, patterns, schedules. But it was the final document that made Sarah's hands shake as she read it. A journal entry, dated the day before the Hartleys checked into the Azure Bay Resort. "She's getting too close. I can see it in her eyes. She suspects something. I've been so careful all these years, but Emma is smart. Too smart. This trip was supposed to fix things, supposed to be a fresh start. But I know what I have to do now. I know how this has to end. Sarah stepped back onto the balcony, looking down at the rocks below. The sun had almost completely set now, and the water looked black and infinite. She pulled out her radio and called for backup, for search and rescue teams, for cadaver dogs. But when they opened the locked basement storage unit registered to room 412, what they found changed everything. The basement of the Azure Bay Resort was not a place guests ever saw. It was a labyrinth of concrete corridors lined with storage units, each one assigned to the luxury suites above. The air was thick and damp, smelling of mildew and salt from the ocean that seeped through the foundation. Detective Sarah Chen descended the stairs with 4 officers behind her, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights hunting for truth. Storage Unit 412 sat at the end of the longest corridor, its metal door painted the same industrial gray as all the others. The resort manager, a nervous man named Douglas Finch, fumbled with the master key, his hands shaking so badly that Marcus had to take it from him and open the lock himself. The door swung open with a metallic groan. Inside, they found Michael Hartley. He was alive, bound to a metal chair with zip ties, a strip of duct tape across his mouth. His face was bruised and swollen, one eye nearly closed from the beating he had taken. When he saw the police, his working eye went wide with what looked like relief and terror mixed together. He was trying to scream through the tape, thrashing against his restraints. Sarah approached cautiously, her hand on her weapon. Something about this felt wrong. Very wrong. Mr. Hartley, I'm Detective Chen. We're going to remove the tape, but I need you to stay calm. Can you do that? She nodded to Marcus, who carefully peeled the tape away from Michael's bloodied lips. Michael gasped for air, then immediately started talking, his words tumbling over each other. She's insane. Emma's insane. She attacked me. She tried to kill me. You have to find her before she hurts someone else. Please. Please, you have to believe me. Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus. This was not what they had expected. Mr. Hartley, we found blood in your room. We found the photos on your laptop. We found your journal, Sarah said, her voice hard. We know what you've been doing. Michael's face crumpled, and for a moment Sarah thought he might cry. But then something changed in his expression. He started laughing, a dry, bitter sound that echoed off the concrete walls. Those aren't mine. None of it's mine. Don't you understand? She set me up. Emma set the whole thing up. Over the next 30 minutes, as paramedics treated Michael's injuries and officers secured the scene, he told them a story that seemed impossible. He claimed that Emma had been acting strangely for months, secretive and paranoid. She had insisted on this anniversary trip, had chosen the resort, had booked everything. The night before, she had drugged his wine during dinner. He remembered feeling dizzy, remembered her helping him back to the room. Then nothing until he woke up in this basement, tied to this chair. She told me she was tired of being invisible, Michael said, his voice cracking. She said she had planned this for 2 years. Every detail. The photos, the journal, everything. She said the police would find them and think I was some kind of serial killer. She said no one would ever believe the truth. Sarah wanted to dismiss it as the desperate lie of a guilty man, but something nagged at her. She had Marcus pull up Emma Hartley's background while they transported Michael to the hospital under police guard. What they found sent the investigation spinning in a new direction. Emma Hartley, born Emma Louise Vance, had worked as a crime scene analyst in Chicago for 6 years before moving to Boston. She had been fired 3 years ago for evidence tampering in a high-profile murder case. The details were sealed, but Marcus managed to get a former colleague on the phone who spoke off the record. Emma was brilliant, the colleague said, but she became obsessed with this one case. A woman who killed her husband and made it look like he was a serial predator who had gone too far. Emma said it was the perfect crime. She talked about it constantly, how the wife had thought of everything, how she had created a complete false identity for her husband. It scared some of us, how much she admired it. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She ordered a deep dive into Emma's digital footprint, her finances, her movements over the past 2 years. What they uncovered was a masterpiece of planning. Emma had created the photos on Michael's laptop using sophisticated editing software, inserting his metadata into images she had purchased from stock photo sites and downloaded from social media. The journal was written in a font that mimicked handwriting, but forensic analysis showed it had been typed, not written. The dating app profiles they found in Michael's name had been created from an IP address at Emma's workplace, not their home. But the most damning evidence was Emma's bank records. She had been withdrawing cash, small amounts, for 18 months. $50 here, $100 there, never enough to raise suspicion. The total came to nearly $40,000. And 3 weeks before their trip, she had purchased a one-way ticket to Barcelona, departing from San Francisco under the name Lisa Brennan, complete with a forged passport. She was going to frame him and disappear, Marcus said, scrolling through the evidence on his tablet. Start a new life with a new identity while he rotted in prison for crimes he never committed. But there was still one question that haunted Sarah. If Emma had planned everything so perfectly, why was there blood in the room? Why the signs of struggle? Why hadn't she just vanished cleanly? The answer came at 9:47 p.m. that night, when a call came in from the California Highway Patrol. They had found a 2019 Honda Civic abandoned on Highway 1, about 40 miles north of Monterey. The car was registered to a rental company, checked out 3 days ago by someone using a driver's license in the name of Lisa Brennan. Inside the car, they found a small suitcase containing clothes, $40,000 in cash, and Emma Hartley's wedding ring. But they also found something else. Blood on the driver's seat. Blood on the steering wheel. And a trail of blood leading from the car into the dense forest that bordered the highway. Sarah and Marcus raced to the location, arriving just after midnight. The forest was pitch black, illuminated only by the portable lights the highway patrol had set up. Search dogs were already working, following the blood trail deeper into the trees. They found the first piece of evidence 200 yards in. A torn piece of fabric, matching the description of the dress Emma had been wearing in the most recent photo on her phone. 50 yards beyond that, they found a shoe, the expensive sandal covered in mud and blood. The dogs grew more agitated as they pushed deeper, barking and pulling at their leashes. Sarah's radio crackled with reports from other search teams spreading out through the forest. Everyone was looking for a body now, convinced that Emma's plan had gone wrong somehow, that she had been injured during her escape. Then one of the dogs stopped at the base of a massive redwood tree and began to howl. Sarah ran toward the sound, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly through the darkness. When she reached the tree, she saw what the dog had found. Carved into the bark, fresh and deep, were 4 words that made Sarah's blood run cold. "He's not the only one." Below the message, driven into the tree with a hunting knife, was a photograph. Not one of the fake photos from Michael's computer, but a real one. A Polaroid, aged and faded. It showed a young woman, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. And standing behind her, smiling at the camera, was Emma Hartley. But Emma looked different. Younger. Maybe 20 years old. On the back of the photo, written in the same handwriting as the message carved in the tree, was a date. 15 years ago. And a name Sarah recognized from one of the FBI's oldest cold cases. The investigation had just become something much bigger than anyone had imagined. Detective Sarah Chen stood in the incident command center that had been hastily set up in the Monterey Police Department's largest conference room. The walls were now covered with photographs, maps, and timelines that stretched back 15 years. What had started as a missing person case had exploded into something that would make national headlines for months to come. The name on the back of the Polaroid belonged to Jennifer Moss, a 22-year-old college student who had vanished from a beach bonfire in Santa Cruz in 2010. Her case had gone cold within weeks, with no suspects, no witnesses, and no body ever recovered. She had simply disappeared into the night, one of dozens of young women who vanished along the California coast during that decade. But now they knew she hadn't just disappeared. Someone had taken her. And that someone was Emma Hartley. The FBI had arrived within hours of the discovery, bringing with them case files that made Sarah's skin crawl. Special Agent Victoria Raines spread dozens of photographs across the conference table, each one showing a different young woman. All missing. All unsolved. All from coastal areas between San Diego and Seattle, spanning from 2008 to 2012. "We called her the Pacific Ghost," Agent Raines said, her voice tight. 12 confirmed disappearances, possibly more. The investigation went cold in 2013 when the disappearances suddenly stopped. "We thought maybe the killer had died, been imprisoned for something else, or simply moved away. We never considered that she had simply decided to stop and build a normal life." Emma Vance, as she was known then, had been a psychology major at UC Berkeley. Smart, charming, and completely invisible to the investigators who had interviewed hundreds of people during the original investigations. She had even volunteered to help with one of the searches, joining the families and community members who combed through the forests looking for Jennifer Moss. The audacity of it made Sarah feel sick. Michael Hartley sat in an interview room down the hall, no longer a suspect but a victim of a manipulation so profound it defied comprehension. He had met Emma 5 years ago at a medical conference in Boston. She had reinvented herself completely by then, new name, new city, new career as a pharmaceutical sales representative. Their courtship had been whirlwind and romantic. He had never suspected that the woman he loved had buried 12 bodies along the California coast. Why did she stop killing? Marcus asked the question everyone was thinking. Agent Raines pulled up a psychological profile on her laptop. Control. Everything Emma did was about control. She controlled when and where she hunted. She controlled the narrative of each disappearance. And then, when she felt she had proven whatever she needed to prove to herself, she controlled her own transformation. She became someone else entirely, someone normal and undetectable. The ultimate control. Until Michael found something, Sarah said, the pieces finally clicking together. He said Emma had been acting strange for months. What if he accidentally discovered something about her past? What if that's what triggered all of this? They brought Michael back to the conference room. He looked like he had aged a decade in the past 24 hours, his eyes hollow and haunted. Sarah showed him the photographs of the missing women, and she watched his face carefully. His reaction at the 7th photograph told her everything. He went pale and his hand started trembling. "That's her," he whispered. "Oh God, that's her." The photograph showed a young woman named Ashley Chen, missing since 2011. "What do you mean, that's her?" Sarah asked, though she was already beginning to understand. "Last year, I was going through old boxes in our storage unit, looking for my college textbooks to donate. I found a box that wasn't mine. Inside was a photo album. This girl was in it. I asked Emma about it, and she got really weird. She said it was a friend from college who had died in a car accident, and that it was too painful to talk about. She asked me never to bring it up again. I thought she was just grieving." "Did she know you found it?" Agent Rains leaned forward intently. Michael nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I think so. She asked me a few days later if I had been in the storage unit. I said yes, that I was just looking for books. She didn't say anything else about it, but after that, she became different. More distant. And then a few months later, she suggested this anniversary trip." The timeline made horrible sense. Emma had realized her secret was at risk. She could have simply run, but that wasn't enough. She needed to stay in control. So she had crafted an elaborate plan to destroy Michael's life while securing her own escape, ensuring that even if the truth about the missing women eventually emerged, she would be long gone with everyone focused on the wrong suspect. But something had gone wrong during her execution. The blood in the hotel room, the abandoned car, the trail into the forest, it was all too messy for someone who had been so careful for so many years. The answer came 2 days later, when a hiker found Emma Hartley's body in a ravine 12 miles from where her car had been abandoned. She had been shot twice in the chest. The murder weapon was found nearby, a 9mm handgun registered to a man named David Brennan from Sacramento. Police brought him in for questioning, and the story he told completed the nightmare puzzle. David Brennan was Jennifer Moss's older brother. For 15 years, he had been searching for answers about his sister's disappearance, becoming obsessed with the pattern of missing women along the coast. He had never been an official suspect in anything, just a grieving family member who couldn't let go. But his investigation had led him somewhere the police had never thought to look. He had discovered Emma's old college photographs on a forgotten social media account. He had tracked her movements during the years the women disappeared. And when he learned about Emma Hartley's anniversary trip to Monterey, right in the heart of where his sister had vanished, something inside him snapped. He had been following Emma, watching her, waiting for the right moment. He saw her stage the crime scene in the hotel room. He followed her when she drove away in her rental car. And when she stopped on that isolated stretch of Highway 1 to plant evidence in the forest, he had confronted her. "She laughed at me," David told the investigators, tears streaming down his face. "When I told her I knew what she had done to Jennifer, to all of them, she laughed. She said I could never prove anything. She said she was already dead, that Emma Hartley would vanish and someone new would be born. She said my sister's body would never be found, that none of them would. So I shot her. I shot her and I would do it again." The task force spent the next 3 months using Emma's old journals, found hidden in a safety deposit box under another false name, to locate the burial sites. They found 11 bodies. Jennifer Moss was one of them, finally giving her family the closure they had been denied for 15 years. Michael Hartley filed for divorce from Emma's estate, though the woman he had married had never truly existed at all. He moved back to Boston and started therapy, trying to rebuild a life that had been built on a foundation of lies. Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the cliff overlooking the Azure Bay Resort 6 months after it all ended. The case had closed, the headlines had faded, and justice, in its imperfect way, had been served. David Brennan was serving 15 years for manslaughter, his sentence reduced due to the extreme emotional circumstances. Emma's victims had been returned to their families. The Pacific Ghost had a name and a face. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that haunted her in the quiet moments. Emma had created the perfect crime, not just once, but 13 times if you counted what she had done to Michael. She had controlled everything, every variable, every outcome. Except one. She hadn't counted on love. David Brennan's love for his sister had been the one thing she couldn't predict, couldn't manipulate, couldn't control. As Sarah walked back to her car, her phone buzzed with a new case assignment. Another missing person, another mystery to solve. But she would never look at anyone the same way again. Because Emma Hartley had taught her something terrifying and true: the most dangerous monsters are the ones who learn how to look exactly like everyone else. 3 months after Emma's body was found, a postcard arrived at the Monterey Police Department addressed to Detective Sarah Chen. It had been mailed from Barcelona, postmarked the day before Emma died. On the front was a picture of the city's famous beach. On the back, in Emma's handwriting, were 5 words that would ensure Sarah never slept quite as soundly again. There are others like me. The investigation was closed. The case was solved. But somewhere out there, in another city, living another carefully constructed life, someone else was watching and waiting and perfecting their own dark art of control. And Sarah Chen knew that one day, another call would come in. Another room would be found with signs of violence and impossible questions. Another perfect crime would begin to unravel. Because monsters don't just exist in nightmares. They exist in the room next door, in the face of someone you trust, in the person you think you know better than anyone in the world. And sometimes, they're already planning their next move before you even realize the game has begun. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.